Welcome to Hacking Founders.
where we are unlocking the secrets of leadership and innovation so you can learn from others' experiences.
I'm Rodolfo Elana, Head of Design and Innovation at Rocketvan.
I'm Tamara Medina, leadership and business expert from Shapowaloa Solutions.
Stay with us. At the end of the podcast, we have our special collaborator, the AI Roulette, who will hack our guests with some challenging questions.
Today we have with us Susanna Ecclestone from Harrington Blue & Partners. As a CEO and co-founder, Susanna is a true bridge builder in the global business landscape. Specializing in international strategy, investment, and mentorship, she's passionate about empowering businesses and individuals to expand purposely, especially between Latin America, the UK, and the EMEA markets. Susanna brings a wealth of experience from leading large-scale healthcare operations to shaping bilateral trade as the executive director of the British-Argentine Chamber of Commerce. She's all about connecting people and building ventures that transcend geography and convention. Get ready to dive into her insights on luxury strategy, cross-border innovation, and inclusive leadership. Welcome, Susanna. We're very happy and excited to have you today with us.
Thank you, Tamara. Thank you, Rodo. It's my pleasure to be here today.
And I guess to start with, we usually start with a little bit of the past and the background, but you being originally from Argentina, it'd be very interesting if you can tell us a little bit about your journey from Argentina all the way to the UK, where you reside these days. And also in that, tell us a little bit about your professional background.
Okay, well, I left Argentina a long time ago. I left Argentina in 2001, right before the big economic crisis that Argentina had. We kind of knew it was coming, but we didn't imagine it was going to be that bad. And we moved to the States. My background was always in education. And when I moved to America, as any immigrant knows, it's really, really hard, particularly with a young family, small children, and, all that. So part of my journey is always about how you reinvent yourself and how you adapt to the changes and, the landscape. And obviously, if you think of the States in 2001, pre-9/11, it was a very different landscape. And after a few years, after I looked after my children and all that, started working in healthcare. And that was a very rewarding job. I could escalate from the bottom, the initial stages of a corporation into management roles and operational roles. The company was growing a lot at that time as well. So that was really interesting. If you know anything about healthcare, obviously everything is related to everything, and you're dealing with people in difficult situations, and and there's an emergency, an urgency that is different from other sectors. You can be innovative, you can be creative, but in the moment you need to create solutions and be resourceful to deal with people's lives. So that was, I worked there for a long time, and we moved back to the UK. When I came to the UK, I stayed in the sector, still challenging because of, you would think that it's different in different places, but at the end of the day, health is a challenging topic in all countries. Aging, and families being away from their relatives and looking after elderly parents. Now with technology, all that is absolutely different from what it was at that time. And I always say that working before technology in healthcare and going through the process of when technology was implemented or starting to be implemented in healthcare or home care, and the reception of these changes was so dramatic and so bad and so badly implemented. Because technology is very useful, but you need to educate the consumer and you need to educate the user. So just to give you an example, what happened must have been 2005 was, in all their kind of, spirit of improving and being more resourceful and reaching more people and helping more people, they implemented changes. At that time, it was perhaps a simple iPad for skilled nurses, or some kind of digital documentation process. And what happened was they lost 60% of the workforce, and they lost it. They didn't understand why. I could understand why. So why? But I always say that that is what happens with the implementation of technology, and how disruptive, in a bad sense, it can be if you don't do it properly. So that was very interesting and very educating. And now thinking about it 20 years later, because you don't think about these things until a lot later, because it starts making a lot of sense. So, well, perhaps, we could have done this, that, or the other thing. And I think in many ways it applies to what's happening with AI now. We can use it for all these things. It could be useful for this process or that process or this other process. And you say, well, how do you have the people educated to use this, safely and, for the benefit of everybody and, in the proper way and everything else. But anyway, I'm just, kind of deviated from the main question here. So after that, I changed roles and I changed sectors. Although I have been involved in operations and strategy and business development, I moved into trade. And I was the executive director of the British-Argentine Chamber of Commerce in London, which was a very exciting role. Always difficult to promote trade between countries, because trade is complicated. It's more complicated now, but during those years we had the pandemic, and it was very hard for companies to navigate, expanding abroad, creating resources or links, and reinventing themselves. I always thought that it was a good thing, in the sense that companies had to be very resourceful and get out of their comfort zone. Countries had to really adapt really quickly, and that is normally not the case. And it created a lot of strategies that perhaps in normal times wouldn't have happened. Looking at emerging markets, looking at Latin America, UK, Latin America, Europe, Latin America, and EMEA, and other countries that perhaps were not originally in the strategy of a lot of companies. So I think that was the good takeaway of the pandemic. That role was challenging but exciting, and I really always enjoyed it a lot. And with that spirit, I founded Harrington Blue and Partners. Because I didn't want to be restricted to one country. I didn't want to be only restricted to the bilateral trade between Argentina and the UK. And because you cannot think like that anymore, I think that disappeared. Everything is too global to think in a straight line. It's multiple lines that open up in any kind of international strategy, whether the company wants it or not, or whether the company is looking at entering one particular country. I always say that you can look at, okay, we want to enter Argentina, we want to enter Brazil, we want to enter Mexico. That's fine. What about everybody else around? Because you cannot think that you're going to be in this bubble, just working directly with one particular market and not have some kind of impact on the neighboring markets or, alternative sectors within the same company. In this case, I mean, sometimes with companies it's a bit difficult to not to make them understand, because they do understand that, but to just think smartly of their strategy internationally. And that nowadays is involved in the geopolitics. Obviously, they will always play the role, but now you don't even know what you have anymore. You don't know if your tariff is going to be 10% or 45%. Your traditional markets are not comfortable anymore, because there's a lot of internal disruption, or because there's conflicts or any other thing. Transportation is complicated. You have a lot of, in shipping, you have a lot of issues, with pirates and attacks. And, the normal supply chains are completely disrupted and changed. And there you have a company that needs to navigate all these waters and kind of think on their feet and really, really quickly to say, well, what are we going to do? International payments and taxes, and how can companies navigate that. I mean, and the cultural, the logistical issues, understanding how things are done in each country is very complicated. Now, I always say that it's as complicated as you're willing to take that on. And that is why I say that there are companies that are willing to do the work and just say, well, this is not going to be a smooth ride. We are going to just, do this, and we're going to just put everybody on board, and we have to anticipate all these challenges or not. That's fine. But it's not going to be so easy. So let's start with that premise that it's going to take some time. It's going to be costly, but we'll put our effort. But I think there is a kind of perception in some cases that with some markets that things are going to be a lot easier than they really are. And that setting up business in market A is going to be, oh, well, this country is easy. Let's go with it. And that is where most of them fail. And
What kind of companies are you predominantly? What kind of companies?
Logistic companies, software services, back office services. Then we work heavily on investment, cross-border investment, and that is another sector. When you think of where do the investors go to invest? Oh, well, we want to invest in this sector. Okay, where are you looking? Well, we're looking at A, B, and C. Okay, why? Well, I don't know, because we know A, B, and C, and we think that that's a good thing. And what about D? Oh, no, we never thought of D. What would you think of D? So you know what I'm saying? Like, well, man, I don't know. I mean, we never were with D, so, well, let's think about it. That kind of taking an investor out of their comfort zone or out of the country they normally operate or the sectors they're comfortable with is not that easy. And then you deal with the flip coin of that, which is the countries or the companies that want to be invested on. And they go, well, we want an investor to do this. Okay, and what do you have to offer? What are they going to invest on? Oh, well, we have this, that, and the other thing. I say, well, you need to prepare this, more professionally, or you need to just direct this to an investor from X country that is going to be very meticulous, and the selection is going to be very high. I'm not saying they all do it. I'm just saying, the perception is that sometimes the money is there and they can access the money a lot easier than it is. Obviously, we know it's a competitive market, but I always say that in many cases, the investment doesn't happen not because of the product. It's because of the presentation. It's because of they did not reach. It's like when you go and buy a luxury product. I mean, you want the best. You want it, packaged properly. You want it all kind of pretty and ready, and you just grab it and you take it home. It's the same thing. So what is the difference with a company that is providing a service or looking for investors and infrastructure or roads, or why wouldn't you need the whole package and say, well, this is what we have, this is what we want, this is what we need, and when we change for your investment, we'll get ABM. We'll have this. Sometimes that is not that straightforward. But I also think that some investors are a bit spoiled. And it's difficult to make them look in a different direction. And that is where I think the opportunities are. And that is why we do strategic investment, because you need to be strategic nowadays. I mean, where are you going to put the money, and where, and when or how, and why this market, or why this technology, or why this product, and asking all the kind of uncomfortable questions, and well, yeah, this is very nice, but we would like to have this and that and the other thing. So, well, we could do that, or well, no, we cannot do that. And that's the end of the conversation, which is also a good thing. I mean, I'd rather have a no. I don't know about you, but I'd rather have a no straightforward. And I'm like, okay, done. This is it. I don't need to worry about this anymore. This is not working. They don't want it. Why? So what are your learning points after that? Did we do anything wrong, or this was the wrong investor, or we looked in the wrong place? But to be self-critical, say, well, look, I think we are not doing this right, or we should change this bit. And that is not so easy. Some companies are very resistant to doing that.
Are some other investors giving a bit of feedback after that? It's like, having an interview for a job. I'm always comparing.
Oh, yes.
And some of the recruiters, they never give you feedback. It's like, yeah, you're not, you're not being chosen, or you're not qualified, whatever.
Don't get me started in HR.
Yeah, no, it's but more in investment as a company trying, we trying to raise funds for one of the products we're gonna release. It's something that it will be, getting a no is always good. You're not good much. Obviously, getting investment is also kind of a marriage in a sense, because it's a long journey. You're gonna share with someone. It's not only you don't want only money. Obviously, it's needed. It's the fuel that it makes your car moving, but also it's a relationship, contacts, or knowledge also in the sector. So
nowadays you have a lot of external factors. You may have done everything right, and then you have all the external factors that now, are so dramatic and impact so much on, just think of tariffs. So, you are investing in a product that now is impossible to export because, the tariffs are so high that how are you going to export this product? Just think of that option. Or you have a product that is wonderful, but you need this piece, and now you have to import it, and the tariff on that product is a lot higher than it was. So your costs are higher, and the whole strategy changes. Think of aluminum, think of steel. These products now have such a high tariff and so much red tape that how are you going to import the steel and the aluminum? How are you going to do that? So how are companies going to just navigate that? And so you may have a wonderful product. You may have the best solar panels in the world. And okay, what happens with the infrastructure? How are you going to make that? So your product is all of a sudden a lot more expensive. Your operating costs are a lot higher. Your workforce changes. Because if you look at globalization and the way that companies are looking at talent, going back to HR, in the past, you had local talent and you work with your local talent. Now you have international talent that is working remotely at international prices. So you have talent that in the past would have worked for, sadly, say, $200 a month. But now this talent knows that, the same, person in the States is being paid $2,000 a month. So they say, well, I want $2,000 too. So the local economy was developed on cheap talent because they thought, we can get cheaper, employees here. And, I hope I'm not being too controversial, but it's true. And, but that is what happens. So you have a workforce that is a global workforce. And it costs 3 times more. Equally qualified at the same, talent levels. Because that's the other thing that I always say, like, you have top talent in non-traditional markets. But always, the selling point was like, well, we'll put an office here. It's going to be, cost-wise, it's going to be lower the cost. But I don't think that's the case anymore. Latin America is extremely expensive now. And, it's still competing with India, still cheaper than India. And India used to be the place to go. And now India is very expensive. So, I don't know for how long that's going to happen. Because Argentina, for instance, now is extremely expensive. We'll see what happens with that. But that is the same, another additional to what you're saying about, all these operating costs. And so the advantage is obviously you have an infinite pool of talent where you can tap on and you can say, well, I need an engineer ABC. And then you are where in Singapore, Malaysia, doesn't matter.
I can find it. But at the same time, the competition, international competition is fierce. And the reliability of that employee is no guarantee, as always, because that's always the case. But you're competing with international players.
And as
Yeah.
with your experience, Susana, I met Susana many years ago when you were the director of the Argentine Chamber of Commerce, and obviously you have a lot of experience, and that's now it's translated to what you're doing in Harrington Bloom Partners. But it will be interesting to understand a little bit more, like one of the things that you guys are fantastic at is like creating this network and connecting companies. So I don't know if you can tell us a little bit more, kind of what is the drive, how you growing the network, and whether there are certain territories that you are kind of focusing more on helping these companies expand.
Yeah, thank you. Well, with everything that I just explained, that is how we think, and that is how I think. And that is how the company works. We look at non-traditional avenues for investment and opportunity. We look at sectors that are interesting at the moment, that may be perhaps more popular or not. And so that's how we navigate. We do have perhaps because I'm Argentine, we do have this Latin American kind of flag within the company, but our markets do not necessarily are in Latin America or focus on Latin America. So we have a bit of everything. We're working with Mexico closely if we talk about Latin America, but also work in Singapore, Dubai, and Japan now. In the case of how we are creating the company and how we are growing, from the moment that we set up the company, I'm going back to HR role, we are completely talent centered. So the talent drives the initiative, the talent drives the strategy, because we want the best people working with us. So many of the initiatives that we've had have been driven by or taken on board by people in the company. So we have consultants around the world who just have expertise in separate sectors, but we also have an international mentorship and internship program that is absolutely working beautifully, where we select talent from everywhere. Younger, professionals finishing university or doing masters abroad. And to be honest with you, this was taken on because, again, going back to what I was saying, as a foreigner, you always need, and nowadays everybody's a foreigner because, if you think about it, everybody's living in another place or working for a company that is located somewhere else. So it's most people really work internationally. And one of the things that has come up with every single applicant that we've had from everywhere, regardless, best universities in the world, the US, Japan, Singapore, Spain, is that they have all these degrees, but they don't have real world experience, and they haven't got the real business like world in the curriculum, because honestly they have to go into the real world and work. So that's what we give them, and that's how we develop the projects. In the case of Japan, the Looking East division, initially we started looking into the video games and the media and technology sectors. There's a huge issue and opportunity between Japan and the rest of the world that we think is very interesting. Japan's perspective has changed. Japan is opening up very interestingly, and reaching out to companies abroad, and inviting the Osaka Expo this year is a great opportunity for companies to go and participate. And but we decided to focus on femtech and age tech. So we are now, it's going to be announced in the next few days. We signed up with a big Japanese company and promote opportunities for femtech, age tech. Going back to my original work, in age tech, in age, not tech. At that time there was no tech, and, kind of create this division that we already have, but set up in Japan, and to promote technologies, not only for women, because that's not only the case, but there's a focus on female founders and female-led companies. So, we do that. And then on the Dubai side, Harrington, we're focusing on luxury investments and opportunities for investment through non-traditional channels, and how this comes about, in a sector that is also struggling, is also difficult. It seems like, everything is okay with luxury and, high-level investments, but I think there's a transformation going on right now, on companies investing in this kind of not technologies companies, and how you look at luxury nowadays. I wrote a few pieces about that, because I think that everybody talks about the experiential investment, or purchases and tourism, but it goes beyond that. And I think that that's interesting. I mean, there's a great opportunity.
It's amazing. Yeah, sorry.
I think I'm a ghost now, so I
You have got into space.
yeah, exactly. But I'm still here, so I'm still
Okay, good.
So, can you tell us a little bit more about this kind of why kind of working with women entrepreneurs, and even from your own journey as a entrepreneur, as a founder yourself, what are the challenges that you see yourself as a woman that you have had running your business, or seeing other running their businesses as female entrepreneurs, maybe first, and then in general?
I don't know. I mean, I don't think the challenges would be that you're always a minority. If you're in a room, I mean, and this is, say, it's an oil and gas event, 90% of the people in the room are men. That is a fact. As you know, so you may have the best women in the room, but the women make up 1% of, the people in the room. That is the problem. The problem is not the talented women in the room. The problem is that the women in the room are the minority. And and I have no issues with that, apart from the fact of calling them on it. I always go like, okay, hang on a second. I mean, what's happened here? It's a gradual process. We understand that. I mean, as more women come on board, younger generations kind of get more present. Companies are, I think, looking at this, but I would like to look at this in a different way, not because of your quota, your minority quota, or your inclusion quota, just because you need this talent, and this talent happens to be this woman that we want. Now, you cannot say, we want a woman for this role, but the male candidate is a lot better. So, hey, that's fair competition. I mean, I don't have a problem with that. Because I don't want to be perceived as someone who got somewhere because I'm just a woman and they need a slot, and I need to be on that slot because I'm a woman. So that is where I'm very careful with this, because I don't think it's easy. But I have always got respect from my counterparts and people that I know. And to be honest with you, I never witnessed that. What you do witness it sometimes is when, yes, all the guys get together, and you have, again.
Do you think this is also, obviously, because we are still on tribes, we're still social animals, and the peers, they always we going
and you still have that kind of thing of
interest. No, what do you think?
still have that kind of interest that you're being too disruptive or too vocal, and on top of that, you're a woman. I mean, but I have to be honest with you. It's just, I feel that more in Latin America than in Europe. In Europe, I don't think that's the case. Latin America is more difficult. I find it much more difficult. still that is not so common. But here in the UK, I think the UK is way ahead in that respect. And when you talk to counterparts, and companies are very serious about that. Abroad, I was just in Argentina for 4 months. I have to be honest with you. I mean, there were some events, it was pretty uncomfortable. Like, the number of women was very small. Some panels were not, and there was no representation in some panels or opinion, pieces. Some sectors are very male-led, and, like mining and oil and gas. So these countries are very heavy on that, and sometimes it feels like a bit disproportionate. But I think it's also a generational thing. I think it will kind of, obviously it's a kind of slow process, because you need the generations to kind of, professionalize and then, step up. But I don't have an issue with that. But you need to call them on it. And I have seen a few. It was not long ago. It was pretty shocking. It was a specific event. I think it was on infrastructure, and the audience was horrified. And it was not just me. It was, the talk of the audience, what's happening here. And where are the women? I mean, there are tons of engineers and, women in the infrastructure world that could be present here. So, yeah, I think that is still a work to be done. But I never came across, Tamara, what you were describing as a difficult road to present myself as a female founder. I have to be honest, perhaps because I'm older. I don't know. When you develop like a thicker skin, but perhaps if you're younger, it could be a bit more difficult. Or if you had talked to me 20 years ago, it would have been different. But I think it has to come. It comes with age as well. So that is what we try to empower younger girls to say, well, look, don't be afraid. If your idea, you have a crazy idea, just put it forward. We want to hear it.
You have a lot of very bright young women working with you and your team. That's
yeah, they're wonderful. But going back to what you are saying, what you come across is that they are very hesitant to speak freely, to make mistakes, or to just say, well, look, this may be a bit like, of the wind, what the Americans say, of the left side. I said, why?
But also maybe it has to do as well with the culture, because some of the girls that I have interacted, you have a global community.
Yes.
They are not, they're not from the UK, for example, or the US, and you see the difference in the different culture of how they approach.
And that is true, and that is what that's why we are disruptive, and that is exactly the goal here, is to be as disruptive as possible. Because what you want that kind of reaction. You want a reaction from someone who says, "Oh, I can do that. Oh, come on, you don't. You would look at my proposal? Yeah, why not?" That is what we get. And that is extremely rewarding, because, you kind of bridge that gap between whatever talent they have, or initiative, or, knowledge, and put it into the real world of business. And I can say, well, look, this is a great idea, but you know what? We cannot monetize this. Or find me a way that us as a business can turn this into a business model. And it may work. Some things didn't work. But I have no issue with that. Because if you don't give them a voice, I mean, you never know. And, you need to think generationally also. Generationally, we think in a different way. And so you have now 2 generations, under us, whose thinking process is completely different. So, you need that kind of thinking to really happen. Well, no, because in 20 years from now, the way that you're looking at this business model is not going to work. And it's fascinating. It's absolutely fascinating. Combining, the old age guys like us, with younger people. But I sometimes feel that they are left alone, literally, by universities. And the university models are very old school, very academic. Some universities are talking about, changing their curricula because it doesn't fit the model of what the students want. Thank God for that.
The problem that many universities, I can talk a lot from Latin America at least, but they keep teaching people to look for jobs. You're a professional and you're gonna get a job. The reality is that there's no jobs, and the system it's completely obsolete. You can learn more from watching sometimes videos. You have, obviously, depending what you watch. There's some exception when you have to doctors and certain professions. Yes, you need to do certain trainings. But the reality is that the system is obsolete and is not changing fast enough for the new generations.
No. And what you would conceive as in the past technical schools or technical jobs, they're not given the importance that they have. And Latin America in that sense, I think, is completely backwards in the sense that, you have top academics, but as you say, in a model that doesn't fit the reality. And then you have alumni or students who really, as you said, they come out of there thinking, oh, well, I graduated from A, B, and C. I have my master's degree in the States or wherever else, and I have another master's. And now what do I do? Because nowadays, everybody has a master's or two. So you are not a competitive candidate, because what is the competition? Everybody else has that. And you look at that and you have the university say, well, now you have this degree from this university, so you can do whatever you want. Well, no, you cannot do whatever you want, because the work reality is really difficult. And so you have 25-year-olds with 2 master's degrees, and they don't have a job. And as you say, a job, what is a job? Describe a job. What is a job? Sitting at an office? Well, no. Or perhaps for some companies. But they don't want that. So, they want the experiential job. So it's a very difficult situation. And that's why I decided to talk about talent, because you deal with kids. I'm going to say kids. We're not kids, they're young adults, who have the drive to just say, well, look, I don't know about this, but I have to read a little bit and, just get onto that. Or who come up with their own initiatives and they said, this is what I want to do. I think we should go along on this route. I said, okay, well, prove it to me. Just show me.
It's a good approach, but I think not all the recruiters and all the business owners, they are ready to that. But before I'm going to get very controversial and talking about AI,
okay,
let's talk about someone that is an AI itself. Is, our AI roulette.
This is the roulette. I'm kind of scared. See what he comes up with.
I always say, on the show, is like we get away. There's a big disclaimer. I don't know what's going to come up. So let's see.
That's a good one. All right.
Quick question.
Hit me.
Okay. What's the most challenging feedback you've received from your team? And how do you respond to it? Interesting question.
I don't know if I have received challenging feedback. But I have been told that perhaps was not the way to go. And I can say I am very self-critical. And if I make a mistake, or if I just think, well, you know what, I had this idea, but really it doesn't work. I just realized that, or sometimes they said to me, said, fine. I don't take it personally. For me, in this case, is we're all learning. I cannot know about everything. So we have some of our interns involved in technology in the back office sector. I don't know that. That is something I don't know, and so I have to trust them. And if they say, well, no, it doesn't work like that. Well, for example, our initiative with the video games and all that, we still have it, but we need to rethink it. We need to rethink it because it's too much for us to take on, although we know where the opportunity is, and we don't have the team, and we don't think at the moment is not viable. We cannot do it. But obviously it's a conversation, and that is what I would say is different. Like, this is all teamwork. I don't sit on my high chair and say, okay, well, I want to hear what you have for me. And, just tell me what, yes, no. Now, we all kind of pitch in and, and look at things. But no, I don't recall specific situation. And if they said it, they wouldn't be because of the way we work. It would be just, a comment like, look, this is not working. And well, yeah, we need to put this aside, and that's it. We have other things we do.
With all we talk about obviously talent, and also at the beginning of our conversation about people getting in, hands-on on technology, and it's something that it causes some friction. So how do you see now with the AI revolution that we're living today, the challenges of those talent that you have, master plus whatever, with competing with the AI also? Because most of the companies, they choosing to get someone that is predominantly using this and replacing some juniors, and this is already happening. So
Yes.
how do you think this is gonna go?
Well, I think and I had a few conversations now when I was in Argentina with my children of my friends, family level. They all work with big companies in Argentina, big banks, and two of them said the same thing to me, and which was these two kids were not in the same room. And they said, well, you know what? I said, I work for this big bank. I don't know what I'm doing. Well, in fact, it's three kids. I don't know what I'm doing. I have been here for 2 years. The only thing I do is I put information into AI, spit something out, and I just send it to someone. So whether it's me or somebody else, these kids are mid-management, well-paid, very smart, and they're completely frustrated. And they said, well, I only push buttons. I push buttons all the time. And I don't have a voice because they don't want to hear my voice. So my emails have to go through AI. Everything has to go through AI. We have our own AI, and everything is filtered by AI. So whether it's me or Peter or John or Mary, same thing. That was incredible. Absolutely incredible. Because you are creating a generation that has no voice. In the past, you would just have, even with some spelling mistakes, you would have an email from someone. You say, oh yeah, that's Susanna, her email. Sometimes she kind of, her sentences are out of order, or, she cannot spell or whatever, right?
I think we all three went through that.
But you know what I mean? Like, you would say, oh, well, hang on, what did you mean with that email? I didn't get it. And you know what I'm saying? That part of your personality is gone. You can improve, and you can say, well, look, I need to work on my grammar or my spelling or whatever, right? But AI is just taking my voice away. I'm not Susanna anymore. That is what I criticize. And, and the fact that you are wasting the talent of a whole generation because you're standardizing everything and you're not giving them any chance to just get out of that. That is where I think it's a problem. Now,
I'm gonna disagree a bit of you. So the one is what we're killing. What we're killing is critical thinking. Those they are not able just to take whatever AI has munched and just chew, and they do nothing about it. Those they are the ones they're gonna become robots more than what AI is. But I believe that once they have a critical thinking and I say, no, I don't want to take this road, I'm going to modify this output, or I'm going to go and feed it with my own sources because I think this is the best. This is the difference. So
But
we
you would just
entering in
be out
an
of that
era of
job.
a tool. We always had the tools. We had computers, and then everyone had a computer at home or not. And then the ones they were doing different things with it. Not like we have the same keyboard, everyone. It's the same keys. Well, it differentiated in different countries,
Yes.
but we have the same keys. That the level of programming is the same. So I believe that AI is another tool, but you don't have to rely 100% on it. You need to use it wisely. If the tool uses you, it's like all the artists that now are coming and okay, I can do everything. In my time was with all the photoshops, everything. Oh yeah, but it's killing the photographers. Like no, I think they are augmenting them. The other thing is like if you just use the filter that gives you Photoshop and they say, oh yeah, I'm a bit of great artist. That's wrong because everyone else is gonna do the same. Is gonna apply the same settings. When you combine with your camera, you're doing this, that, and you apply your own filters and then you modify and you give it an expression, then it becomes something else. So I think it's this, but we're getting into a comfort zone and a dangerous zone that critical thinking is vanishing. So
But I don't disagree. And look, I use AI as well. I don't disagree. But you are talking about, and I do get what you're saying because it's true. But if it comes from a corporate level, that you cannot do that. If you corporate, if the high boss says to you, all the emails are going to be filtered through this, and everything is going to go through this, and you kind of put two pieces of your own, thinking. I'm a big fan of the use of AI because I think there's a lot of things, obviously, that I don't know. But in the case of, for instance, of streaming operations or finding faults or streamlining processes. If you look at the way that I was telling you when I was working 20 years ago in healthcare, you would have 300 employees on the field and you would have a piece of paper and said, well, this person is here, this person is here, this person is here. That is how we used to do it, right? And if you look at that now, you would have a machine telling you, no, hang on. And so you would save, 5 hours of your day? I mean, that you used to do scheduling people. So in that case, I agree. But the problem that I see is that, they need to be given that option. We're talking about the younger people. At the same time, going back to what I was saying, their way of thinking is different because they're putting AI in the mix. So if they come with an idea, AI is already in that idea. In our idea, AI perhaps may not be in the idea or perhaps a little bit of it, but not in the full context of it. So that is what I see as a positive. So, they know how to use these things and they say, well, look, we can do A, B, and C using this and that and the other thing. And that is where I rely on, people who understand. But I want this result. How do we get there? Tell me how we get there. What do we need to do? But I don't disagree with you. But I think there's still a hesitation to show what you're saying, the critical thinking, the creativity. I don't know. I don't work with a lot of artists, so perhaps that part I'm not that familiar with. But
no, it's across sectors. So this revolution tackles from law firms to anyone. So I think it's I put this example because I think
is it true what I heard? That AI cannot learn anymore.
I think
Sorry?
I think it requires like a change of mindsets, no? Especially for the people like ourselves that, we didn't kind of grow up with AI. I was reading a book that is very interesting and precisely saying that usually from most businesses, you add tools to your business. But now you really need to shift your thinking and you need to kind of start with the base of AI, and on top of that kind of layer the processes and the business. You have to shift your thinking. And for the companies that don't make the change, or the people that don't make that change, I mean, even for us, it's like really thinking how can I implement? It's a challenge. So I think the key is maybe what you said earlier on, Susanna, in that sense that it's about really learning from the younger generation how to implement some things, and at the same time with the experience that the older generation might bring to come to
You saw the news. You saw the news about the CEO of Duolingo. He sent an internal memo. You saw that, and he said, "Okay, we are replacing." I don't know. He said 80% of our staff or our employees are going to be replaced by AI. So he sends the internal memo. There's a whole kind of uproar. And perhaps he was just too honest, too upfront. I don't know. I mean, even if he keeps the strategy, he could have disguised it a bit differently. But there was, he had to backtrack on that, at least on the memo contents, because it was too disruptive to say, well, we can have this company, but we only all these people doing the job. And when you're talking about languages in particular, you need that. What you're saying is you need, like with art, you need your little interpretation, you need your little thing. So I don't know whether it's in the case of Duolingo, for instance, it all kind of be machine delivered. You know what I mean? Like, the internal concept in some languages like Japanese, that have all this kind of cultural background to everything they say. But I don't know. What am I to, I don't know. I think that there's sometimes this you have to be very careful how you present these technologies. And going back to my story from the beginning, it's a process. And so you need to incorporate it with education, with, adaptation, and, do it by little. But if you just, do it all in one go, it could be pretty disruptive. That's my opinion. I don't know. But hey, I'm all for it. And I completely love, all the things that you see nowadays. And, that you think the old way, like Tamara would say, you think certain things the way you used to do it, and then someone says, well, no, you don't need to do that, you just do this, and it's done in 2 seconds, and that's absolutely fascinating. Oh really? Oh, that's absolutely great. But I think there's a learning curve from our side as my side as non-tech older person, where I just kind of grasp the whole kind of spectrum of things that can be done. And I think there will be more than that as well coming up.
Okay, Susanna, well, we're almost kind of close to time. There's a lot of things to talk about. Is there one last thing that you want to share, something that you wanted to, maybe we didn't ask you, that you would like to share?
Well, no, I want to thank you for the opportunity, and congratulations on having this podcast. I think they're very useful. I hope this is useful for someone. It's always like, if you make an impact, even if it is small impact, it's always good. Obviously, we have a business and we want to grow the business. But at the same time, as I said, I am personally focused on people. And, people drive the business and people drive the initiative. And it's all about the people. Now, in the case of technology, and like Rodo said, it's kind of how do we collaborate with the people who understand the technology to motivate the younger generations, and to, at the end of the day, to make the business work. Because it's all very nice, but everybody needs a job, everybody needs to work, most people, and I think we have a responsibility, as business founders and business owners to create opportunities for others and ourselves. But at the same time, yes, using technology, we can save time. Time is money. That's good. Or, just make it faster. That's good.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Great having you guys. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening. Join the conversation, follow, like, and subscribe on our different platforms.
This podcast was brought to you by Rocket Van, Chapo Aloha Solutions, and Harrington Blue and Partners.